Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Jack and Jack show. Jack Stroudly. We are sixth in the Premier League. How does that feel?
Feels a little bit surreal, to be honest with you. Obviously, the start of the season, we didn't really know what to expect. We were a little bit confident in terms of the recruitment we'd made, but it was, if we could pick up a few points here or there, we'll have a good return. And we're currently sat going into the international break in sixth. I know some teams obviously haven't played, but it's just unbelievable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say because, personally, since I've been on Fulhamish, which has been since, the season under Slavisa, we got promoted. This is the highest we've ever been in a league in the footballing pyramid. And you're 7 games in, don't get too excited. But I think Fulham fans are allowed to sort of get a bit giddy because to be on this sort of points tally after 7 games for a newly promoted team is pretty good. And not only that, taking points off a relegation rival potentially in Nottingham Forest, which we'll get into, is very positive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was having a chat with my Dom on Saturday after the game, and we were talking about just the day as a whole, Nottingham Forest. As you said, we're going to get into Nottingham Forest, but we were trying to think back in terms of when was the last time with fans in the stadium we won a meaningful away game in the Premier League. Under Parker, we didn't because of COVID, and then the year before, or the 2 years before that, the only game we won was Bournemouth away.
And we were already relegated.
Forest was the first meaningful away victory since we beat Aston Villa when Richardson and De Jager. Was it De Jager that scored, or was it Rodallega?
It was Rodallega the winner.
Rodallega, but it's just absolutely mental that it's been this long since that we've had like a moment that we can, being in stadiums, that we can like truly celebrate as much as this. And obviously, we're not going to, as much as I'd like to say, we're going to stay in sixth all season. That's just obviously not going to happen. But while we're there, we might as well enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? That is so weird you mentioned that because on our way back to Motspur Park on Friday night, me and my friend Lewis, we were thinking, wait, when was the last time we actually won a Premier League away game? And that was, like you said, Bournemouth away, but we're already relegated. And then it got me thinking, how many Premier League games, away games, have I actually seen us win? And Nottingham Forest was the third. And I've gone to 129 away games, since 2013. So they've all been scattered around, obviously, mainly in the Championship. There's been a bit of Carabao, a bit of FA Cup here and there. Absolutely extraordinary. And like you say, so that Villa away, and then it would have been Bournemouth the subsequent season. We were already relegated. Then we had lockdown, of course. And this is our first away game of this season. Shall we get into it and talk about the game? Because you were stood right behind me, and for the first half, I was pretty tired and fuming. To be fair, I was upset in the way in which we conceded the first goal. It was pretty soft. Awoniyi, that's how you with the goal. And let's talk about that first half because we had most of the ball. We created most of the chances, but didn't really have like a chance apart from Micho blazing wide, Tim Ream that ball across the box. We didn't penetrate them and their goal, but we certainly were in and around the box and looking to create.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, again, I was having a conversation with a couple of friends at half-time, and they were kind of saying, it's been a really poor half. I completely disagreed with it. I thought we were the much better team. Yes, we hadn't got the ball, we hadn't created that killer chance. And the one chance the Forest truly had was just a defensive mistake from the corner. We just fell asleep. And I sort of said, if we keep playing the way we're going to play, we know we'll get chances, and it's just down to us as a team when we get the chances. Are we going to take them? And obviously, as we know, the rest is history. We did take them through 3 pretty surprising goal scorers. But yeah, in terms of the first half, I was disappointed that we went in at the break 1-0 down. But as a whole, I wasn't too disheartened by the first half performance, just purely because we controlled the ball. Obviously, there's the argument we could have potentially got a red card as well. Or sorry, Forest should have potentially got a red card in the first half as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I just thought we were looking so much better than Forest that I just knew we would get a chance. And it's just a case of, well, we're going to take it, and ultimately that's what we've done in the second half.
And then we obviously went into the second half, and we were sort of like, is this going to be one of those days where we play well, can't quite create the chances, and Forest just basically hold their lead, keep a defensive line, and shit out a 1-0 win? Because we've seen it before. Huddersfield away was springing to mind. Obviously, we were in a dire situation at that point. But what was frustrating me was that we're going to drop points to like I said earlier, a relegation rival. And did you see us at halftime? Were you like, I can see us going on and win this? Because I certainly did not see that.
Maybe not necessarily winning, but I thought that we would have got the chances to get back. I was confident we'd get the chances to get back into the game. And it was whether, just purely because of how dominant we were with the ball, and it was just whether we would have taken those chances. I kind of thought it screams the type of game we'll kind of, we'll keep pushing, get like an equaliser in like the 70th minute, try and kick on for the winner and not get it, and be a little bit frustrated that we've only picked up a point from the game. But that wasn't to be, thankfully, and we obviously came out in the second half kind of in the same vein. And obviously Tosin scored. Then I know we'll get into it. And Palinha's unbelievable strike, and obviously Harrison Reed getting his first goal for the club.
Oh my God, yeah. There's so much to get into. What I want to ask you first is, we've had some. Let's take 2022 in isolation. We've had some unbelievable moments, beating Reading 7-0, Luton 7-0, Stoke away, like the countless games. But where do those 6 minutes for you rank this year in Fulham moments?
I think it's got to be, I'm not saying it's first, but it's got to be right at the top for me. I think the sheer just day of the Luton game where we won 7-0 and lifted the trophy, I think that's top for me, because that was just absolutely sensational. It was the first game I got to watch with my granddad, who got me into Fulham in months, and it felt like a real nice moment. In terms of a sheer, just kind of small snippet of a game, that Forest 6 minutes, I don't think it's going to get topped, to be honest with you. In terms of it just felt like we just feel like such a different team under Marco Silva in the Premier League than we have in previous times. In terms of we will just and even the Championship will just constantly just go forward and try and score more and more and more. And to see us, doing that in the Prem in such a short space of time is just absolutely remarkable. I'd kind of composed myself and got my breath back from the Tosin goal, and then Palinha decided to put one in. and then I hadn't even finished composed myself from Palinha, and then Harrison Reed kind of appeared at the edge of the box, and it was just absolute carnage.
And we did the exact same at the City Ground last season when we won 4-0, scoring 3 goals in quick succession. It was like deja vu, but on a much more escalated level, because obviously it's Premier League. I'll admit I didn't see any of the 3 goals. I'm too short and quite far back. Actually, Isabella, who's on the podcast, was stood next to us as well, and she didn't see anything as well. We didn't really know what was going on. It was absolute mayhem. Let's go on to individual goals then. Mitro blocking off Yates to give the space for Tosin is one of my favourite, bits of dark footballing magic that I've seen this season. That's sort of come off from what we saw last season as well, with those sort of blocking corner routines that the Athletic did a really good piece on. Peter Rutz did a really good piece on that when it was identified last season. Tosin, great header, really good header, solid bottom corner past Dean Henderson, 1-1. Thoughts on the goal?
No, absolutely. As you mentioned, Mitro's work to kind of stop Yates. It shows that he obviously, there's been a bit of a clip circling on Twitter of that Forest fan who said, Fulham are a bit of a one-man team. They just rely on Mitrovic to score goals. But yeah, I think Mitrovic is obviously Fulham fans know, but he's showing to just the masses that he is more than just a big lump going forward who can kind of put the ball in the back of the net. He does offer so much to this Fulham side. And in terms of set pieces, that's, I think, a big thing that we've been lacking under, obviously, barring Marco Silva last season. In terms of Premier League seasons before, we've been lacking, presence at set pieces. Because if you're good at corners, the amount you'll score, the amount of goals and points you'll pick up extra from purely being good at set pieces could be the difference. And obviously we're in 6th and we're like the sky's the limit. But in terms of that, could be the difference between whether you stay up or whether you don't. So being as clinical as we have been from set pieces, you look at obviously Palinha scoring the header against Brentford, and now we've scored again. I don't think there's been any other ones, but we've always looked like we've had a real presence from corners. And now whenever we get one, I'm kind of thinking, we've actually got a decent chance of scoring. Whereas in prior years, whenever we've got corners, I've just thought, well, this isn't even going to get past the first man. Like, it doesn't really matter. So that's such a real asset to have and a real trick up sleeve.
And obviously the ball in from Willian was pinpoint. It was perfect. I think we've scored 4 headed goals already this season. Mitra on opening day against Liverpool, Palhinha, Tosin, and
Mitra got another one against Brentford as well in the last minute.
There we go. That's it. That's the 4. There we go. So that's 1-1. At that time, I was thinking, oh, thank God we're level because we've been really good, and we're pretty deserving of at least a point here. By the way, at half time, I was like to my brother, I was like, take a point and just run, get out of here. This is horrible. And then João Palhinha, what a goal! Absolute thunderbolt in the top corner. Really satisfying first time finish as well in the top bins. Your thoughts on that? Because what a goal!
I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, we didn't, where me and you were, we didn't particularly see a lot. The stairwell to the left of us was far too crammed. You couldn't see anything.
Oh, yeah, that was probably why, yeah.
Yeah, the stairwell was far too crammed. You couldn't see anything. But I saw the ball kind of hit his boot, and then like a little bit of the net kind of, wobble, and then everyone just lost their heads. I was like, right, we scored. But looking back on the goal, it's such a good finish, and that's 2 Palhinha's got for us. He obviously scored out in pre-season in Portugal as well from outside the box, which, I mean, I've had the pleasure of seeing all 3 Palhinha goals. I don't think many Fulham fans.
Oh, yeah, you were one of the... How many were there in
one of probably about 6, maybe, that were out in Estoril. But no, like, João Palhinha, obviously, we know his defensive capabilities, and we know how good of a footballer he is. But the fact that he's also able to kind of come forward and offer, a presence outside the box from range, and again from set pieces, he can score headers. He just seems to be such a complete footballer, and the fact that he's at Fulham is just absolutely astounding to me. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get into the fact of he loves a yellow card and the fact that he dived into the away end and he's now suspended for Newcastle. But in terms of him as a footballer and in terms of that goal, unbelievable.
I think the yellow card is, as annoying as it was so inevitable. It was going to happen at some point. That it's sort of like, oh, it's fine. Like, as long like we know he's going to be out for Newcastle, then he's going to be on a clean sheet or a fresh, I don't know, a clean slate. There you go. Yeah. For yellow cards going into the West Ham game. And I think his wife or girlfriend is due to give birth around the Newcastle game. Whether it was tactical or not. To be fair, you can't knock it. And to be fair, he's got enough credit in the bank already this season for us to not be annoyed at him. Why would we be annoyed at him? He jumped into the crowd. It's what you love to see. I didn't even realize he got booked until after the game. Someone mentioned it to him. So someone mentioned it to me on the coach. So I was a bit like, oh, that's annoying, but it was bound to happen at some point, Jack.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember, and Dom told me he watched an interview with João Palhinha, and he compared. I don't quite know how he's come to this comparison, but he compared every Fulham game to being like Sporting Benfica in terms of just the atmosphere and the passion. And I don't quite know how he's come to that conclusion, but you can kind of see it in every time he's been involved in a goal, or he's always just so just up for
the Mitro winner. Do you remember?
The Mitro winner, he's like slamming the ball.
The hoardings.
Yeah, and he just looks so up for it. He already looks so settled, and you look online, there's so much love for him, both in England and back in Portugal. It's just so great to see. Obviously frustrating that he's out for Newcastle, but I think you kind of take it considering the goal he scored.
Yeah. There's a lot of small murmurings of debate. Is he the best DM out of the top 6? Obviously we're in the top 6, but out of the, what the Premier League call their top 6, I would argue maybe he's in the question. And do you compare him to the likes of the first Moussa Dembele, that sort of ilk of player? Because people are saying, oh, we haven't seen someone this good since, Moussa Dembele. And yeah, he's just getting a lot of plaudits, and he obviously got into Shearer's team of the week, which is really exciting. He's just loving life in Fulham. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of the Dembele debate, I think it is a bit early days. Obviously, they're different. They're very different footballers in terms of Dembele was such a progressive player with the ball, but still had the defensive kind of capability of Palhinha. and also didn't get booked anywhere as near as much as Joao does. But
Yeah.
I think if you were to like kind of look at like an all-time kind of Fulham, not so much all-time, but in terms of like actual ability, not in terms of sentiment and what they've done for the club, I think you'd struggle to look for a better midfield two than Polinia and Dembele. I think in terms of just sheer ability alone, not sentiment and what they've done for the club, I think you'd really struggle to make an argument for many other people.
Now, if Polinia continues his form, we sort of know that Karim Benzema is going to win the Ballon d'Or this year. But what about next year? Is he on for it?
If he keep up this, who knows? I mean, they might have to put in an award for the most yellow cards.
Yeah,
but who knows?
The best player with the most yellow cards, he'd probably win it. We must talk about Harrison Reed now. And I didn't even do this on purpose. I'm wearing an orange jumper. in I don't even know what the words are. Harrison Reed got his first goal for Fulham. Finally, is this goal more about the bad defending from Ronan Lodi and the whole Forest defense, or is it good work from Willian to create that space, or is it a bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest with you. Obviously, like this time last week when we were talking, you were asking me who I think we could potentially target, and I said Renan Lodi.
Yeah,
Renan Lodi was the one, just because he's come from Atletico. He's not suited. He's not comfortable yet. This, that, and the other. We can really get him. In that first half, we saw every time there was, sniffs of an attack, it was always Tete and Willian down the right hand side, kind of putting the ball into the box and trying to find Mitrovic. And in the second half, obviously Willian created the space. Renan Lodi then pushes out and leave Harrison Reed. So I think it's kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. Willian knows that Lodi's maybe the weak point and does really well for that goal. It's just so great that Harrison Reed's got that goal, to be honest with you. I can't think of a player really more deserving of finally getting his first goal for Fulham. For me, he's been phenomenal since he's been here, to be honest with you. I struggle to think of a game where he's dropped anything less than a 6.5, 7 out of 10. He's always just so consistent.
Even ever since he first came in, I don't remember him dropping this thing. You're right. I don't remember him dropping a rubbish game. He's so consistently good, and I'm touching wood. He's so consistently good, and he's so reliable, and he's, barring his injuries, he's been sort of a mainstay in that team for quite a few years now. And what a pickup it was from the man who should not be named. Was it Scott? Did he sign him, Scott Parker? Must have been.
Yeah, he was at Scott. Yeah, he must have been. I think. I think
bit of credit for him.
He was on loan during the promotion season, wasn't he? And then we signed him permanently
that was it.
And then we also loaned Lamina from Southampton as well.
We were desperate to sign him on a permanent, and I think we announced him the same night we announced another signing, which I don't think was Lamina. It was someone else. It was right at the beginning of the summer. Anyway, we're going on a tangent, but brilliant to see him get the first goal. Fantastic. Hopefully the first of many. What I really enjoyed about this was the fact that our squad depth was finally taking shape and becoming noticeable in the bringing on. I know he didn't do much, but Dan James, just to stretch that defence, last 10 minutes, they're tired. He's got the pace. He had that shot wide in added time. I think he should have probably started bringing it to the corner. It was a bit of immaturity there. But this is what I like to see. Like, if we're in a position where we need to hold on to something or we need to stretch a defence or try and get another goal, Dan James, for me, is the perfect person to bring on in that position. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mentioned again last week about the pace that he brings, and it's just so nice that we've now got different options at the start of the season. We were very much lacking in that department. Obviously, we kind of got away with it in the terms of, obviously, we beat Brentford, who picked up the points against Liverpool and Wolves and whatnot. But we've made the necessary signings now, and you've got the potential of when Harry Wilson's going to potentially be back. That's maybe relatively soon, I'm not too sure. Then, obviously, you've still got Manor Solomon to come back after the World Cup. Like, we now just seen the depth across the board. I'd argue maybe potentially barring maybe one in midfield, I'd argue is as good as we could want it to be right now.
Are you happy with... let me ask you, are you noticing or seeing, and if you have, are you pleased with the amount of credit the mainstream media are giving us? Or do you not think there's enough? Do you think people are not talking about the fact that Fulham are 6th after 7 enough?
I've not really seen a lot, if I'm being brutally honest. And that's not me. I'm more than happy to be the underdog that no one really talks about. But The only thing I've really seen was a guy on, I can't remember who it was someone on TalkSport talking about Mitrovic, and he's just a big target man, and if you get players who pace around him, he'll be fine. Which I completely disagree with. I think barring Dan James at the moment, we don't really have lots of pace in our attack. I don't think Bobby Reed's the quickest player in the world. I don't think Cabana's the biggest player. I don't think Pereira's the biggest player in the world. Well, not biggest, the quickest, sorry.
Pereira's quite small.
Yeah. But I think it's just the way that Marco Silva's got us playing. Mitrovic drops in deep. The kind of intricate play amongst players. Mitrovic wants to, battle for the ball. And then you also get Paulinho and Reed who come forward. Reed, who has a bit of a tendency at the moment to kind of venture right and presses out onto the right-hand side. And I think that it's very, very easy just to say, well, Mitrovic has scored all the goals, so Fulham must be just relying on Mitrovic. And I don't think that's true at all. I think that as a whole, we're a team that's ticking at the moment, and we've got a lot right. And yeah, I don't think we're getting anywhere near the credit that we deserve. A lot of people writ us off before we'd even been promoted, as per usual. But that's I'm happy if people want to, just say, oh, it's just Mitrovic, blah blah blah. They can say that all they want. We're in sixth, we're playing well, it's fine.
What you do get in the Championship is a lot of lazy punditry, and the fact of the matter is, we were second to last on Match of the Day on Saturday, given we played the Friday. And their analysis of the game was fair, but it was more focused on Forest's defence. I would have liked Gary Lineker to say at the end, "Oh, Fulham, they're doing really impressing everyone so far." But there was none of that, and I was like, I can't believe I've just stayed up for that. That was really disappointing. But it's fine to go under the radar. It's fine, and if we go and beat Newcastle and suddenly we're sitting on 14 from 8, people will start talking. I think. Because it's Newcastle and they spent, this, that, and the other.
Money, yeah.
Exactly. So it's fine. We're sick. That's locked in until at least October 1st. So happy days. Anything? Oh, I suppose they got the goal back, didn't they? How pleased again were you to see us in the way in which we saw out added time? Brilliant. Yeah. Tim Ream,
absolutely sensational. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, the goal was very frustrating to give away. The only reason they got back into the game was they brought on Lewis O'Brien, who I think is an absolutely incredible footballer.
He's different gravy.
He's honestly an unbelievable footballer. The way we saw the game out was really good, as per usual, just keeping the ball in the corner, slowing things down. Game management was once again spot on. I was going to say, are you concerned at all about the fact that, while we're scoring a lot of goals, we're also still conceding a decent amount. We've scored 12, I think, in 7, but we've also conceded 11. We've not comfortably put a team away yet, despite the fact that we are currently sitting in 6th.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And there was some debate on the podcast about Tosin's defending for that second goal, and I genuinely feel like he had no other choice than to do that back heel, because if he'd gone with his other foot, he's risking scoring an own goal the way in which he's running back towards goal. Maybe I need to. That's the way I saw it. But so I was slightly giving him the benefit of the doubt with that one. But you're right. We are conceding goals as well as scoring them. It's all well and good scoring, but I'd look at the Brighton game and I'd say, barring they scored a penalty, which was a VAR situation, which was quite a bizarre one, a foul out of sort of nowhere, and ultimately, we defended really well for that. It could have been a clean sheet on another day. We got a clean sheet at Wolves, and Forest were chasing. Yeah, I'm concerned. But you look at some of the fixtures we played this season. We conceded 2 against Arsenal, 2 against Spurs, 2 against Liverpool, which is arguably pretty good going considering those teams have got all those quality in them. And we have come unstuck against, we conceded 2 against Forest, 1 against Brighton. Am I missing any?
2 against Brentford.
2 against Brentford. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there is cause for concern in that department. But we're scoring goals.
Yeah.
And scoring goals will win you games.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing is, while I'm loving everything that's going on at Fulham at the moment, are we going to score 2 to 3 every single game, 38 games? I don't know. It's just not sustainable. And there's gonna be times, I think, unless certain things change, I don't necessarily know what, where we could find ourselves on we concede 2 goals relatively early, and then we struggle to get back into the game, and it's dropped points and whatnot. But look, we're sixth in the table. You can't really complain. I think it was just something that was worth noting.
I'd also argue that given Robinson's injury, we haven't really seen a settled back four for a few games either. And now Issa Diop's putting that really, really good performance on Friday night. Is there a question that he comes in and partners toasted with Robinson at left back, which is harsh on Tim Ream because he's been absolutely phenomenal. But there is a question there. There is a chance to maybe pip him and play centre back for the foreseeable games. So once we see maybe Robinson come back in, we have a more settled back four playing consistently. Those goals at the other end might dry up a little bit, which will be good. And of course, the run of fixtures we've got, we don't play Manchester United and Manchester City until the 2 games before the World Cup. So I think we've got like 6 or 7 games of...
It's like Newcastle, West Ham, Bournemouth, Leeds, Everton, Villa. Like it's a decent little run of games now.
Yeah. Which doesn't guarantee anything. Of course,
absolutely not. But obviously, like you said, we've played Arsenal, Liverpool and Tottenham. We played a Wolves side, which people were kind of raving about. Brighton, who were on good form at the time. Brentford, who everyone seems to love. And Nottingham Forest, who have signed like half the world. And we've come out of it we've come out of it and we're in 6th place. Like you can't really ask for a lot more than that, to be honest with you. And it could have been more. Mitrovic missed that penalty. Do you know what I mean? Against Wolves, like it could have been more. We could have been in the top 4.
We could be on 21 points.
We could be on. I also remember a funny way of looking at you in the away, and I just had a look on Sky Scanner at like trips to Belgrade, ready for the UEFA Conference League group stages.
I remember shouting to you, "Renew what's your passport status like?" 3-1. Look, we're giddy, and I think we're allowed to be giddy. I know this is what I said at the beginning. We haven't been this high up in the pyramid since. Well, I remember we beat Norwich 5-0 on the opening day. We were top of the league. Yeah. But apart from that, I mean, I don't really remember, especially, 7 games in, that was obviously only 1 game in. And yeah, this is great. And we can enjoy it for a couple of weeks. Newcastle to come next week. Joe Sanson will be back. He flies back tomorrow. But Jack, you've just been brilliant to have. And the fact of the matter is we won on Friday. So this has been a fantastic episode.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Anything else you want to say?
Maybe were we going to talk about Polinia getting suspended and?
Right, yeah. So,
or do you want to say that for when you and Joe are talking about?
Newcastle? Well, I mean, it's worth noting he's not going to be there against Newcastle, is he? But there's only 1 game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. For argument's sake, who would you then bring in? Would you bring in?
I think it depends what style kind of Marco wants to go for. It's whether you want to drop Reed slightly further back. So the sitter to stop him because he likes to venture out to the right. If he's the 6, he's not really going to be able to do that. It's whether you want to play with kind of 2 8s and you bring in Kenny or even potentially Onoma. It's entirely up to. I personally would probably go Reed as the 6 and then maybe Kenny as the 8. I think the other. I don't think Onoma, as much as I like Onoma, I don't think Onoma would come in this early.
And Chabs.
And yeah, the other argument is Chalobah at the 6. And I don't really want to see Chalobah at the 6. So I'll go Reed and Kenny.
Yeah, I mean, Polinia is sort of, probably first name on the team sheet these days. Although Mitrovic is fantastic. He wasn't involved with any of the goals. Obviously, apart from you got the pre-assist for the 3rd, I suppose, with that really good pass to Bobby Decordova-Reid. So yeah, I mean, TC will probably drop in, hopefully, and bring up Harrod, and then obviously Pereira will play a more advanced role. That'll be a tough game, Newcastle. They're no mugs. They obviously drew to Bournemouth at the weekend. Isaac and Fraser, St. Maximum might be out. You never know. There's rumours that he might not make it for the game. And yeah, I mean, if I had to ask you now, just for argument's sake, again, what would you say a score prediction for that game would be?
I think it's so difficult. I think while Newcastle maybe necessarily haven't picked up as many wins as they would have liked to, I don't think their points total really suggests how good they have been this season in terms of they were the much better side against Wolves. They were unlucky against Liverpool. Bournemouth, they were unlucky as well. So I think if we came out of the Newcastle game with a point, I wouldn't be too disheartened, to be honest with you. I think that they are a really good side. And I think especially when you look at, we're not going to have Polinia in the midfield. And I think a player like Bruno Guimaraes will have a bit of a field day, to be honest with you. So I think I would take a point.
Yeah, good point. And obviously they got, they took City to the sword and got a 3-3 draw out of them as well. They haven't won since the opening day against Nottingham Forest, but like you said, they put some really, really good performances in. And that's that for today. We've been running for about half an hour, so a nice episode for everyone to watch. Obviously, we won the game. Leave your thoughts below. And obviously, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get up to 4,000. Wait, is it 4? Oh, it might be 5. It might be 5,000. We're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to get more numbers on the channel. But yeah, Jack, thanks so much for filling in for the last couple of episodes. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No worries, mate. Cheers for having me.
We'll be back next Wednesday to preview Newcastle. And then there's a lot of games to come before the World Cup. So everyone strap in. It's going to be an interesting season. And so far, we're absolutely loving it. See you later, guys. Thanks so much for watching. And come on, Fulham.